Okay, we will go ahead and get started. And for those of you who are new to these listening sessions, what we'll do is a little bit and for those of you who are joining again, we're doing a little bit of a restructure where I'm going to first go through top line items and then we'll go through the council meeting principles before we go into general introductions and anything that anyone prepared to kind of say to this group, or if there's anything that any of you are thinking about, and then we'll go into the overview and updates. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the June 2022 listening sessions for the California Truth and Healing Council. We have general listening sessions this week, with the first having taken place on Monday, June 20th from 1 to 2:30, and the second one taking place right now. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and the tribal advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the ancestral homelands of the Patwin peoples. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics for today's session. First, we're recording this session, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. The recording and summary notes will be available on the CTHC meeting page and blog when they're ready. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening sessions, recordings, and the listening session summary documents are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. If you've not already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And as we get into the discussion portion of today's session, we'd appreciate if those who are comfortable could go on camera. We're going to start with the brief overview of the council meeting principles, and then we'll go into introductions of those of you who have joined us. And then, as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on the recent updates before we go into the listening and discussion portion of today's convening. If you'd like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. If you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to raise your hand using the app controls, but you can also use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. You can also email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our council members, council staff, and many of you are members of the population seeking collective healing. So I ask that you engage with the council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart in a healing mindset. Many of us doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of patience and emotional integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us. And now I'm going to very quickly go through the meeting principles.
You're good.
Great. Okay. So in joining today's convening, you agree to adhere to the following principles for respectful engagement. A copy of the principles is available for your use and review at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC, and it's at the resources page. Refusal to adhere to these principles, which apply to all participants, including governing council members, staff, and community members, whether present or not, may result in your removal from today's meeting. In order to create a space where participants feel welcome, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. We ask that all participants, which includes council members, authorized representatives, staff, moderators, and the public, work towards sharing in their stewardship. If you are a participant in a convening with the council, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. What is respectful engagement? It means to affirm the person but critique the ideas. Provide feedback constructively and with the intent for mutual growth and healing. Welcome feedback and challenges to your opinions. Avoid contributing to assumptions or generalizations about tribes, tribal communities, or other groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived group. Speak only for yourself. Offer participants the benefit of the doubt. Spirited discussions are expected on these topics. See this as a sign that folks are engaged and care, and remember to be respectful as you speak, read, and listen. Honor confidentiality. Do not share others' experiences or information without permission. Assume that you have relative privileges and both explicit and implicit biases. Know that others may or may not have similar opportunities, experiences, and background as you, and recognize that their contributions are equally valuable. For those from dominant identity groups, refrain from contributions that prioritize dominant experiences over those who have been marginalized. Welcoming behavior. This means make behavioral adjustments for virtual communication. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, refrain from saying it virtually by voice or text. Know that use of strong language, capital letters, and exclamation marks can easily be misinterpreted online as unwelcome, yelling, or aggressive behavior. Remember that tone does not carry via text. People might not realize you're joking or being sarcastic. And leave space for others to engage and express comments and ideas if you've spoken recently by letting people finish their thoughts before adding new ones. Personal well-being. Take steps to ensure your physical comfort. Some examples in virtual meetings include shifting your sitting and standing position often, taking a purposeful deep breath regularly, raising your eyes to look beyond the screen or sit back from the computer when possible to relieve eye strain. Keep a glass of water nearby and take sips throughout sessions. Please consider physically leaving the computer during breaks. Participate as you are able to and adjust your presence as needed, whether that's turning off video or stepping away entirely. It's not expected that all participants will or should be present for the entirety of the council's work. We know and support that you'll take time to eat, take care of your families and pets, but be aware that virtual convenings will be recorded and available to the public. Set up supportive resources such as food, water, ergonomics, and privacy while offloading responsibilities if possible in advance of convenings. Plan for breaks and stick to them. Support from your own networks or from provided resources and please alert our staff to any concerns as soon as possible by emailing info@catruthandhealing.com. Seek support. We recognize that participants bring their entire selves and histories with them to the council, and that topics explored during the course of this work may stimulate emotions and thoughts that would benefit from accompaniment and support. Although trauma responses can come from a variety of sources and contexts, the council understands that those who have experienced disparate treatment due to their Native identities may specifically want to seek assistance related to historical trauma and related issues discussed with the council. Council staff will be providing supportive resources for participants to be available for the duration of the council's work. Okay, I'm going to stop share, and then we will go into introductions for those present. We'll start with our staff present, and then we will move to council members present, and then we will open it up to any folks who'd like to introduce themselves. So as I mentioned, I'm Christina Snyder. I'm the governor's tribal advisor. I'll hand it off to Loretta.
Everyone, good evening. My name is Loretta Miranda, Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians and Serrano and Cupeño.
We've also got from our office who you can message directly if you'd like to set up a time to meet with us, and who's been putting some good links and info into the chat. And we've also got Anella Tucker on, who is our new fellow in the office who will be with us during the summer. Anella, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, my name is Anella Tucker, and I will be joining the office for the summer, and I'm very excited to be here and be a part of these sessions.
Awesome, welcome. And Anella is going to be helping us on some of the youth council work, the oral history work, is a member also of Southern Sierra Miwok and is a rising junior at Stanford. So we're very excited to have her with us. Councilmember Harper.
Yes, Open Macintosh. Greetings, everyone. I'm Joan Harper. I'm an appointed member of the Truth and Healing Council. I'm also a tribal citizen of the Federated Indians of Great and Rancheria. I'm joining you today from Sebastopol, California. And I'm very happy to be here and to hear all that you have to share this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. And I saw Councilmember Myers, if he's still on. Did we lose him?
I think we did, but we do. I think we have Councilmember Turner on.
Yes, Miriam Nathan Tishmal Turner. I'm the vice chair for Rincon and happy to see everyone here. I don't have a great stable connection, so that's why I'm not on screen. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Good to see you or hear you, sorry. Now we'll open it up. Who else would like to introduce themselves to the group at this time, or say a few words, or if there's anything that you're thinking about that you'd like to share with the group at this time, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll say, if you can raise your hand, to raise your hand, but if you'd also like to just put your camera on and physically raise your hand, you can do that too. And then also, if you'd like to even just introduce yourself in the chat, that is perfectly fine as well. We'll give it a couple more seconds in case anybody wants to.
Oh, hi, Christina.
I was waiting for you, Robert.
We're running through getting dinner. So anyway, hi, my name is Robert Levi. I'm a member of the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians. I am also the elder in residence at California State University San Bernardino, and I am a member of the Education Subcommittee. So, thank you. And I'll see Loretta tomorrow.
Great. Good to see you, Robert.
All right.
And Julian, did you want to introduce yourself?
Julian or Julie Holder?
Well, Julian was waving on the video earlier, so. And Julian, you're muted. Okay, well, Julie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Julie Holder. I'm Kumeyaay from Southern California. I have done a lot of work in this kind of endeavor, so I'm looking forward to the conclusions everybody comes to. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Julie.
Hello, my name is Julian Medell. I'm from the Watucnam people from Eden Valley, Uxmalhana. And we are one of the tribes that was forced marched into Round Valley. And I was just following up on catching up on some of the videos that are presented. And I see that you're from Dry Creek, Rancheria?
Yes.
Oh, cousin. Oh, my family, my grandma's side is Manuel from Dry Creek Rancheria. So good to see all our nations coming together to bring healing to California. That's
wonderful. My family's the Dollars, so we're kind of all over different places.
You're all over California, that dollar.
Good to see you. Teddy, would you like to?
Sure. My name is Teddy Simon. I'm the Indigenous Justice Advocate at the ACLU of Northern California, member of the Navajo Nation, and happy to be here with you all this evening.
Great to see you, Teddy. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group? Rebecca, good to see you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Robles. I'm an Hashman culture bearer. I'm from San Juan Capistrano. I presently live in Hawaii. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group before we go through updates?
I certainly can. I'm Denise Varner. I am coming to you from a Maidu camp area. It's not their ancestral land. They shared it at one time with the Maidu in Meadow Vista, California. I am an enrolled member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. I am Nokasushi, Bear Clan, Healer Clan, and it's good to be with all of you and good to see you all. Thank you.
Good to see you and welcome back. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves at this time? Okay. Well, as we move forward, again, feel free to put any comments, any introductions in the chat, and any questions you have. And then if you have questions as we go through, please feel free to raise your hand, and Loretta will be kind of monitoring everything to make sure that we don't pass over any questions or comments that folks have. And then if there's anything that stimulates further conversation or thoughts, please feel free to just raise your hand, jump in, and we can have a conversation that goes a bit on a tangent. And then if there's anything that you think is stimulating any sort of discomfort or anything, please let us know. We like to have our materials and our presentations be responsive to the community, and we don't want to be doing anything that might unintentionally offend or make people feel excluded or like there is a perspective being pushed that isn't necessarily collective or something that we want to be putting out there. So please feel free to let us know where we can improve, and also want to make sure that folks feel like they have the space to be able to speak if they want to. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll go through updates.
You're good.
Thanks, Loretta. Okay, so today, if you joined us Monday, we do the same presentation both days to make sure that folks that couldn't join on Monday and can only join in evening are able to weigh in and consider the same types of things that people spoke about on Monday. But also we tend to have different conversations in different sessions. So this, it's always worth joining just to make sure if there was something that you were thinking about in the previous session that you now feel comfortable to speak about, you can. So what we'll be doing today is an overview of the council and its charge. And we do this every listening session to make sure that those who are new to this listening session can get an idea of what this is, what the council is hoping to do. And then we go through different updates to make sure everybody's kind of all on the same page. And then as things come up, we can address them, or we can refer people to work that's already been done in this council, or we can talk about how we can build that into the work of the council as we move forward. So we'll have the overview. We'll then talk about the California Truth and Healing Fund, which is still currently open. We'll then talk about the hybrid quarterly council meetings, the future listening sessions, subcommittees and issue area task forces, and then we'll go into general listening and discussion. So what is the California Truth and Healing Council? The Council is a California Native American-led initiative that aims to clarify the historical record of the relationship between the state and California Native Americans by bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native narratives in the spirit of truth and healing. The council is led and convened by my office and governed by a governing council of California Native American leaders, and may also include additional non-voting representatives from California Native American tribes, relevant state and local agencies, and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. The council will submit a final written report of findings to the governor's office by 2025. And as I mentioned before, we may actually add on to this timeline depending on where we're at, given the constraints that we had due to COVID. This work was initially planned in a world that predated COVID, and our ability to connect was a lot different. So was anticipated to be done mostly in person. And so as we kind of navigate a hybrid world, we may want to add some time to this, but don't want to have the work lag at all. So we're keeping the timeline for the time being, but we'll reassess as we get closer. The final report should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state. And it can also make remedial recommendations and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. The recommendations will be considered and adopted or developed by the council in real time. So what I mean by that is that if the community develops recommendations and brings them to the council can consider those and adopt them if they think that they're kind of ready to go. If there are recommendations that are being vetted by this council and come out of the work of the council, that happens as well. And they can be recommendations to improve policy, legislation, or funding for California Native people. That's obviously not an exclusive list. Those are just some of the things that could be in this report or could be part of this work. And the proposed approach is that the task forces that we'll talk about in a little bit will propose recommendations to the deliverables subcommittee. And that subcommittee will review and approve as their sub-reports are drafted. So each task force has a focus, and the deliverables subcommittee will basically vet those recommendations as they're drafted. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation, and participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimony to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the council, and join the work of the subcommittees. If you're a California Native American tribe, we are conducting ongoing consultation meetings, and you can reach out to info.tribalaffairs.gov.ca.gov if your tribe is ready to meet at this time. We basically have, this is an iterative process. So when we consult with you, that's not kind of that's it, and we've checked our box. It's kind of an ongoing invitation to be talking to us about how your tribe wants to engage. And so if even like, let's say we've talked to a tribal council in 2019, or we talked to a tribal council in 2020, there's been elections, there's a different perspective on how the tribe wants to engage. We're happy to continually have that conversation and figure out what the best and most appropriate way for your tribe to be represented in this space looks like. We're flexible about the method and mode of meetings, especially given the COVID-19 ongoing pandemic. And meetings can be recorded and transcribed, which we provided for. And we put that they will be, but this is really at the choice of each tribe. We put that in there just to account for the fact that once a tribe decides they want to submit their official presentation, we can record that and transcribe it. If they decide that they don't want to go that method and really they just want to submit written documentation or want to submit something different to the council, they can do that as well. Tribes can share as much or as little as they're comfortable with. And then outside of tribal consultation, the governing council and the tribal advisor's office are available to meet with Native American individuals, organizations, and groups at their request as well. We want to make sure we're getting a holistic picture of the diversity of the Native American experience in California. And want to be respectful of the tribal tribe to state conversations and relationship, but also want to make sure that we are not excluding Native people generally who are outside of those constructs. Another piece on this, in case there are questions, when consultation meetings with tribes, it's between the governor's office of tribal affairs and those tribes. It is not with the governing council. And so if there's potential questions about confidentiality of discussions, whether certain things will be shared with the governing council, given different kind of tribal perspectives and different placement, those conversations stay within our office unless you want them to be open to other people, but it's at your choice. And also if if there are issues potentially with my tribal affiliations where you don't feel comfortable speaking with me in the consultation, but you feel comfortable speaking with Loretta based on her background and tribal affiliations, either of us can take the meetings and recuse the other one as well. We're seeking oral histories at this point in time as well. And this is kind of running throughout the work of the council and was requested for by the Elders Council to make sure that we are capturing the rich experiences and stories of our elders, especially when we're kind of facing a really destructive pandemic. So the council is currently seeking to conduct interviews for Native oral histories, particularly from elders, and can provide you with assistance in providing submissions. Please contact us at info@catruthandhealing.com expressing your interest in submitting an oral history. And oral history recording opportunities will also be available, aligned with regional listening sessions, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We'll release signups for those dates and times as they're available. And so right now we still have our order is processing to get recording equipment for this, but it should come in within the next several weeks. And what we're seeking to do is basically have both our office can come out and help you record. We can also have basically like recordings at different partner institutions, which we're beginning discussions with some of the CSUs on, so that for those of you that just want to be able to do the recording and have it be submitted and don't want us to really be, you can do that. For those of you that have certain time constraints or you'd like to set up, you'd like to be able to do something without us coming out there, we're trying to make that available as well. So we're going to do now an update on the California Truth and Healing Fund. And the California Truth and Healing Fund is a fund that was started up by the Decolonizing Wealth Project, which is a partner organization of ours that we asked to help us seed a fund to catalyze the work of the California Truth and Healing Council. That organization has created an advisory panel of California Native leaders. On that panel is the funding subcommittee from the California Truth and Healing Council, Governing Council, but then also 2 additional members from the California Native community. So we've got Mark Macaro, who is a tribal chairman from Pechanga Band of Indians and is a Truth and Healing Council member. Frankie Myers, vice chair of Yurok Tribe and also a council member. Kusla Kessler Mata, professor at USF and a Truth and Healing Council member. From Yaktitu Titu Chumash. Erica Acosta, an attorney who is Pomo and Wailaki. Chag Lowry, who is an educator, Yurok, Maidu, and Achuami cultures. And this council both helped fashion the requirements for the fund, which are fairly flexible, and we'll go through it in just a minute. But then also will be responsible for vetting and approving all of the applications that do come in. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute while I get on the fund website. And Loretta, while I'm doing that, if there's anything that you'd like to add on any of the updates I've just given, please feel free to jump in.
And Michael just put a link to the Decolonizing Wealth Fund website. So folks want to go ahead and click on that too. You can follow along or save it in your browser.
Great. And maybe I'll just click on that as well. Okay. Okay. So just a note for the first round, The deadline had been, I believe, June 15th, but they extended it to June 29th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And there's a little bit about both the California Truth and Healing Council and the Decolonizing Wealth Project. But we'll go through the current eligibility and criteria for the fund. So it is open to California Native American tribes. And so this term refers to tribes that are on the list maintained by the Native American Heritage Commission for purposes of cultural resource and sacred site protection. And we understand that not every tribe is on that list. So there's some flexibility here. But again, every applicant has to either be a federally recognized tribe or a 501c3. And this has to do more with some of the tax regulations that Decolonizing Wealth and the fund itself are subject to. So it's not an active choice to exclude, it's just how the fund operates. So non-federally recognized tribes who do not have a 501c3 are encouraged to work with a 501c3 to get fiscal sponsorship to be able to access the fund or another eligible entity. Also, California Native-led 501c3 nonprofit organizations, coalitions, or projects fiscally sponsored by a 501c3 based in California are eligible as well. Native-led means that the organization's board of directors and executive leadership must be majority California Native-led and must primarily service California Natives. If there is a question about whether what that definition of California Native is, I would just submit whatever information you have supporting that along with your grant application, because the advisory council itself will examine that on a case-by-case basis and will be able to make an informed decision. And where there is a question, they'll be able to kind of engage in that process. Individuals are not eligible at this time, but if there are applicants that want to be able to create grants that individuals are able to access, that is possible as well. So for example, if a tribe or a 501c3 wanted to create a fund for individuals who are seeking to attend Truth and Healing Council meetings, attend certain conferences that have to do with, genocide, truth and healing, and things related to this work, that would potentially be eligible as well. Funding cannot or has to be used for charitable purposes, so no lobbying, and cannot be used for efforts in opposition to other tribes or tribal entities. Grant amounts will range from $5,000 to $50,000, and funding of the Truth and Healing Fund will shift over time as the work progresses. The goal in our partnering to create this fund was that we wanted to create a mechanism for catalyzing the short-term efforts that tribes and Native people might have to be able to participate in the work fully and meaningfully. The long term is that the fund itself can shift to meet the goals of the Truth and Healing Council itself. So where the Truth and Healing Council report recommends certain calls to action, recommends certain endowments, recommends certain things to be able to remediate some of the awfulness of the past, that fund is more nimble than what the state can be able to do even with significant funds, and could be catalyzed to fund those reparative, restorative calls to action. Also, the structure of the fund can change as well, depending on how the work goes and what those recommendations are. So current funding priorities should include activities that directly support the goals of engagement with the Truth and Healing process, such as, but not limited to, efforts to spread awareness and increase community engagement of California Native Americans in the Truth and Healing process of the Council. The fund will prioritize statewide and regional organizations and coalitions that can provide awareness, community engagement, and logistical or capacity support to engage with the Council. logistical or capacity support to attend and engage in the council meetings and hearings. Those activities may include funding for transportation, lodging, childcare, meeting space, and other supports that address potential barriers to California Native participation in the statewide process. Efforts to bring together California Native Americans intra or intertribally to discuss, plan, or otherwise prepare for engaging in the council process. So if there is a group of tribes that have similar culture, similar background, and all want to engage in kind of a regional approach to healing, they could do that. Also, a single tribe could look and say, hey, we want to do this with our own tribe in a way that will help us engage in the council process. So otherwise prepare for engaging in the council process or to engage in independent truth and healing work with and among tribes. Tribal history, research, and narrative work that supports the goals of the council process, such as the digitization of tribal history, research, narratives, documentation of land loss, cultural items, or archival. And this can include efforts to record firsthand accounts and first-person narratives that capture oral history, clarifies and corrects the historical record, grievances, or promotes truth-telling. Capacity building for tribes, so research and planning to support California Native land back efforts. This can include resources for legal support, capacity building for land back claims, retrieving historical documentation, engaging anthropological or scientific support to support claims, capacity building for how to create tribal land trusts, capacity building regarding tribal co-management, or other planning needs. Does not include resources to purchase land, but can basically be used for everything up to that point. And note also that funding can't be used for efforts in opposition to other tribes or tribal entities. So an easy example here is where a tribe is seeking to purchase land in an area that's not its ancestral homelands. That would probably not be something that this fund would support. Support for traditional healing programs or efforts connected to tribal or intertribal truth and healing processes. So there are 2 rounds, and the first round has a deadline in a week on June 29th, with the first round decisions announced July 2022. And then round 2 will have a deadline of September 15th, with decisions announced in October. If you go to the website, you can find out how to apply, which you basically create a Just Fund account. And there are several support webinars on how to apply, and then also some technical assistance webinars that took place a couple weeks ago. You can also contact Decolonizing Wealth if you need assistance with submitting your application. And if anyone's interested in supporting the fund, you can also email them and figure out how to add to the fund. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and then go back to my PowerPoint. And Loretta, is there anything else I should add about the fund?
Nope, just encourage folks to take a look at that website and reach out to Decolonizing Wealth if you have any questions.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again.
And Julie, I'm not sure if that's a raised hand or if you're clapping.
No, I'm not clapping yet. You give me the money. That I am asking though, on this Decolonizing Wealth, I've looked at the website and it looks like it's a national program that is it local just in California, or is it national, or is it international?
So Decolonizing Wealth Project is a national initiative and national organization, and they work with different types of groups to decolonize wealth. And so they work with African-American groups to think about how to catalyze and fund reparations work. They also work with Native groups. This is, I think, the first state type of healing effort that they've engaged on. And they have, so national group, And we've invited them in to help us create a fund that is basically trying to, again, decolonize funders from thinking that they need to have major strings attached to their funding, and just understanding that there is a restorative justice facet to just giving money for the purpose of helping communities based on their own needs and priorities. So that's probably a longer answer than you were asking for, but now your hand is raised. So please go ahead.
Okay, no, my hand is no longer, I put my hand down on my machine, so maybe it says lower hand to me. But in the meantime, thank you. You answered that. The only other question I would ask is, the website doesn't give board members, doesn't give how it's structured. Is there a deeper site to go to look at that?
I can share, I did an overview of how it's structured and how it works, and I can share that with you. And I can even post it on our website as well. And it's like, it walks through everything and how it's structured and how it works within, how this advisory council works within their group, and vice versa.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, so I would encourage folks to, if you're on the fence about applying and you have kind of a basic idea of something that you think would be a good fit, to go ahead and apply. I think the idea, right now, and especially with that fund, is that we want to fund good projects that aren't getting funded elsewhere necessarily, that can help tribes build up capacity to tell their own stories, especially in the context of this work. What we see a lot in the history books in the United States are perspectives that are not Native perspectives. And what we'd really like to see out of this process is Native communities, tribes, peoples reclaiming their own histories in whatever way that feels right. So whether it's, we do want to focus on the awful thing that happened here, or whether it's, we don't want to focus on that, and we think there's too much focus on that, and we want to talk about how we're a resilient culture that came back from people intentionally seeking our destruction. That's, I think that's a community choice. And I think the beauty of this work is that that choice is put in Native hands, and is kind of up to do what you will with. So if you have ideas about how you want to go about that, I would encourage you all to apply, because I don't think it's like a one and done, you apply, you get money, and then you're out. I think they do want to prioritize getting as much out as possible, but I think also higher need will also encourage more philanthropic funding, so that there's more kind of coming in and going out constantly. And Loretta, you unmuted, so would you like to?
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay. So for 2022, we have begun regular quarterly council meetings and hearings, and the council is currently utilizing a hybrid model to conduct its regional meetings and hearings. The first hybrid regional meeting of the council took place on March 17th and 18th in Sacramento. And business meetings of the governing council will take place as needed for the council to conduct business. The meetings will be done in accordance with open meeting rules and may occur in conjunction with quarterly meetings or regional hearings or listening sessions. And really what we're looking at for the rest of the year is tacking on business meetings onto regular community convenings. So for example, if there is a special day, if there is a special celebration, we would like to work with your community to add on a business meeting to both draw attention to the thing that your community celebrates, to the extent that you're receptive to that, but then also build listening sessions and business meetings to make sure that the work continues outside also of the quarterly meetings that are kind of bigger events. Hybrid meetings and hearings will prioritize the local tribes and the native peoples of the region, because again, we're still trying to be as mindful as possible about the spread of COVID-19 and the higher risk to native people. So for each meeting, we ask tribes a number of questions as well. And these are like host tribes. Do you have any suggested or proposed speakers to present the story of your tribe or region to the council? Speakers can be elders, tribal historians, trusted academics, etc. And speakers will receive a stipend for speaking. If so, you can send us their contact information and we can confirm their participation. Is your tribe interested in providing an opening blessing or thoughts for either day of the meeting? If so, please send us the name and contact. Would your tribe or a representative like to have the opportunity to tell the story of your tribe at a location outside of the meeting site? So let's say we're meeting at, UC Riverside, and there's a place of historical significance that you would like to tell the story of your tribe because something major happened there. We can build that into the agenda for the council and the public to be able to attend, or just the council if it's something that feels like it's more appropriate to be more of a private type of thing. And then ongoing, Loretta and I also scope sites to see how we can build out quarterly meetings in those places. So if there are places where you'd just like us to kind of have a conversation and we can kind of figure out what a meeting looks like, we can also come and chat with you as well. So we also ask how many individuals will attend from the tribe, just so that we can make sure that we have adequate space and that we're, again, COVID friendly. And then is there anything about your tribe that you'd like highlighted for the general public? We'll be providing links to tribal cultural centers, businesses, and web presence, and are happy to include any information you'd like to provide. And I know that these questions are a bit tribe heavy, and we got that question on Monday, but if there are regional hearings, meetings, listening sessions, and you're a culture, sorry, it's 7 p.m. and my brain has stopped working apparently. But if you're a culture bearer or you are a native business owner and you would like us to be highlighting your work, highlighting what you're doing in the area, we can do that as well. Would your tribe or any of your tribal members like to host any affiliate events? Affiliate events can include nature walks, dinners, cultural center, open houses, and other types of things as well. Would your tribe like to provide any digital content? So some tribes already have digital content about the story of their tribe that they use for these kind of things. And we can also include that within the context of the meeting. So we also have, in addition to quarterly meetings, regional hearings throughout the state. And so the difference between a quarterly meeting and a regional hearing is that a quarterly meeting is really kind of a broader story of a specific region that takes place over a couple of days and is more of a built out event. Regional hearings are, I have a specific event that happened in this one place, and I think that they're important for the council to come hear about. Or I have a specific, there's something very important that my tribe wants to communicate, and the council can come up and can have a hearing and we can hear from the tribe. We can do that as well. So if your tribe, organization, or institution would like to host a regional hearing, or you have a topic you'd like to cover in a regional or topical hearing, please contact us at info@catruthandhealing.com. And the hearings will also become relevant as well as we do the issue area task forces, who will also conduct hearings based on the issue areas that they're covering. So future listening sessions will take place both in person and virtually, and we'll shift to include issue-specific discussions to guide conversations toward values and goal setting for the council's work. If you have an event or a location where you'd like us to host an in-person listening session, please let us know. And really what that looks like is, let's say that you have an event on, Saturday morning, we could host a listening session that afternoon, we could host a listening session the day before, just whatever feels right, because we really want to not be adding on to community burden. We want to be leveraging community gatherings as they exist, and where it's appropriate for us to help facilitate and be invited into those spaces, we are happy to do so. And then let us know if there are topics you'd like to explore more fully in these discussions. And these can even be topical. So we know there's been some conversation around the report issued by the BIA about the boarding school study and assessment of cemeteries throughout the United States. If that's something folks want to talk a little bit more about and get a bit more of in depth about, we can have those conversations in the context of these listening sessions as well. We have within the council has created a number of subcommittees, and these are all in various stages of development. And the idea for these are like overarching lenses and also subcommittees that are created to facilitate certain and specific partnerships. So we have the Academic Partnerships Subcommittee, whose charge is to assess and enter into partnerships with different academic institutions in order to help with the work, whether it's to together who are focused on California Indian issues, or whether it's to catalyze fellows and student assistants to be able to help with research and help tribes with their own research. We've also got a funding partnerships subcommittee, and they work with funders generally, but currently right now are helping to stand up the California Truth and Healing Fund. We have the Youth Council, which is had its first virtual convening in January, and we have a plan for a second virtual convening soon. We have a proposed urban communities subcommittee that'll focus on the specific needs of urban communities and specific history of urban communities, with obviously a California Indian lens. The status and identity subcommittee that'll look at the gaps in access to resources and other rights, responsibilities for folks that are lacking status or due to not hold in a tribe or based on descendancy or otherwise, or also are members of non-federally recognized tribes, so then do not have some of the same protections under the law that federally recognized tribes do. We then have the education subcommittee, which I think we will be proposing to turn into a task force because there are specific deliverables that will come out of that committee. We then have the deliverables subcommittee that vets all of the task force proposals to make sure that we are having something come out of this work. And then we have the elders subcommittee, which again is still seeking additional elders. And we know some people on this Zoom have already sent in their interest, and we just have not had a convening yet of the subcommittee to be able to process those, but we're just getting organized. And we have a bit of restructure internally with our office as well. So that subcommittee, again, seeking more elders and then also seeking to conduct those oral histories. And then there is a proposal to have also a community or a subcommittee for disabled Native peoples throughout the state. And Loretta, is there anything you'd like to add on any of these?
Nope, you covered it.
Okie doke. So the issue area task forces.
We do have a question. So, Julie.
Are you talking to me? I can't. This is Julie, and I do have a question about the committees.
I will go back. Yes.
Thank you. I'm noticing on these committees that a lot of them are going to have probably information that will be duplicated. What is your process for collaboration among the committees? And then the second part of that question is, when you say deliverables, are you talking accountability?
I am talking accountability. So that subcommittee was specifically created to ensure that this council is being accountable to the recommendations that come out of it and is producing actual action. And then it was also created to make sure that there are recommendations that are given the context that we're operating in, so that we don't have recommendations that sound like they could work, but then there are laws that prevent them from happening. So they're basically vet and approve recommendations that are actually deliverable. And then the overlap, so these are all lenses. And so, for example, status and identity will have its own section and will be like its own task force for a section to, similar to the report that I think you worked on several years ago, that we'll talk about the unique history and how we got here, where we have Native people that are lacking a lot of the protections and rights that a lot of other Native people do retain in the state, but will also be a lens across all of the issue area reports. And again, that's how most of these will be. So elders will be more of a lens and a focus, and then urban will be a lens and a focus as well.
Okay, thank you.
So to get into the actual recommendations, and these are not firm, these are proposals. They haven't been vetted by the governing council yet, but they're how we think that we want to move forward on the work, is by creating issue area task forces that are headed by 1 or 2 experts in California. And so things, and there's obviously like subs to all of these, but one is culture and potentially continuity of culture, and that can be anything from gathering to language to dance to all of it. Financial survivance, which is our attempt at making economic development sound less capitalistic, but I think we're going to keep working on that one, because really the idea is that there are things that people need in order to survive and to do well and to thrive, and right now that's based on a capitalistic system. So what have tribes done, and where do tribes want to go in order to ensure their survivance? Education, which is again from the previous one, safeguarding knowledges, which is basically figuring out and thinking through recommendations to safeguard cultural intellectual property. So both things like, my great grandma's personal individual story and background is something that is like unique to her and should not be taken by other people or claimed by other people. But then also things like where to gather, what to gather, when to gather, how to weave certain patterns, things like that. And how do we do work like this, do work like the federal level is asking in integrating traditional knowledges and traditional ecological knowledge without that being another extraction and being something that's actually guarded and accounted for and utilized respectfully and with consent, or not utilized if there's no consent. Wellness, so that's more of like health and Indian health services, things like that in California, but then also cultural wellness. So part of this is all of these are related. So we're trying to figure out what are concepts that actually reflect that translate well. And I'll get back to that in a second. But wellness could also include, like, are we able to engage in our traditional food sources? Have we been put in places where we don't have clean drinking water, where we used to have access to everything? Land and lifeways is a similar type of conversation, because again, everything is connected. And what are the things that we need to bring back, whether it's access, whether it's for spiritual purposes, whether it's for just that connection to land. And then public safety or justice systems, so court systems, policing, things like that. But from a Native perspective. And really, we've been talking about too, potentially thinking about, are there terms from California Native languages that accurately reflect what we're trying to convey here, so that this is actually a very much more Native perspective report and not just translating into Western concepts, things that don't actually fit into Western, or fit into Western viewpoints and ideations of the world. So, you know, where the concept of having enough for all doesn't quite translate because, you know, economic types of things don't totally translate into just general community wellness. Are there terms that we can use to better reflect that? Anything else on this, Loretta, that you wanted to add?
Nothing to add.
Okie doke. So we'll now go into listening and discussion. And I believe I have some questions on here, but I will pause in case there's anything that people want to chat about, anything that they've thought about as we've had the presentation, or anything that you're kind of ready to share or just ask about in this process. And I think I haven't quite yet mentioned, but we are planning, let me stop my share. We are planning several in-person convenings over the next several months. And some of them are things that we're tacking onto existing events so that we're again leveraging those events. So, you know, one example is that there is the ATALM conference in October that we're hoping to have at least a listening session, but probably a business meeting around. NCAI is coming to Sacramento. There's a couple of things happening over the next several months and over the rest of the year that we're hoping to kind of build out. And then we're expressly reaching out to certain places where we think that there's they're ready for this conversations and ready to have the council attend and listen and learn more about their communities as well. And then finally, we are planning for a regular meeting, which is like a multi-day meeting in San Francisco. I don't think we're going to change the date on this, but I'll say it and then we can't change it because everyone will have it in their head. We are planning on a regular meeting in San Francisco in September on the 15th and 16th, with likely some programming the day before as well. And that's in partnership with Friendship House San Francisco, who will be helping us host that convening, and we'll make sure that there is you know, adequate parking and transportation as well around that, so that we can make sure that people aren't struggling to be able to attend that as well. Anything else, Loretta?
No, just be on the lookout for announcements about in-person listening sessions. Like Christina mentioned, we are in the works of kind of planning those out, and hope to see you all in person, gathering as safely as we can. But I did want to note that I think Councilmember Sisk is on, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Don't mean to call you out, but I saw your name.
Yeah, I would just listening to all of the good news, and I don't know about all those meetings, but hopefully we can do something before too long, and not just kind of, I mean, taking information about different communities and tribes and things is important, but I think it also is important to actually, you know, try to put something on the table here. So anyway, that's my thoughts about it. Thank you.
That's great. And I think that tees up to, because I didn't mention this. So I did mention that for the task forces, we're hoping for them to be led by like about 2 issue area experts. If you have ideas about who those people are, they don't need to write the report. What we're trying to do is create a structure for people to be the thought leaders in that space and bring together the community that needs to help fill out those recommendations and reports. So for example, when we're talking about justice systems, we're thinking certain judges, certain scholars that would be good to be at the head of those tables to help facilitate those discussions. But what we're hoping to do, and what we're doing actually with a couple of the task forces, but aren't final yet, so I can't really say a lot about it, is we're pairing them with support either from law firms that have that want to provide pro bono support in those spaces to do report writing and the recommendations based on the conversations that happen in those task forces, and with law clinics or other clinics that have specializations in those areas as well. So we're trying to bring together kind of the perfect storm of the right people to have those discussions and make sure that there are actionable recommendations that come out of it. So that work won't be concurrent. Some of the task forces may conclude their work within months because they know what they need, they know what they want, they know where all of the information is, and they'll just put it together. Other task forces, it may take the full time for them to figure out how they want to move forward. So just putting that out there as well, is if there are any folks that you think would be really good in those spaces because they're kind of the leading voice or the leading scholar, we'd love to hear from you as well. Any other thoughts, comments, questions at this time? Ken?
Hello. I was just listening to what you were saying. Have you guys ever contacted California Legal Services? Because, you know, they've been doing this for 40, 50 years. I worked with them maybe 25 years ago for about 20 years to get a right of way. Have you guys contacted them? They're a nonprofit. They've been doing Indian business for quite a while. I mean, most of their attorneys have become attorneys for Indian tribes. So I was just wondering if you guys, you know, are reaching out. Because I do notice there's like 34 people here. You know, on this line, there was 24 Monday. I don't know how far it's reaching, this information. You know, like you talked about Indian Health Services. You know, and you heard it too several months ago. Somebody said there's two criterias, you know, us and them, and you know, which is understandable. But have you guys even contacted California Legal Services or any kind of the Indian legal firms? I mean, I know they work and represent other entities. So that's just a question. Have you contacted them or have you done our outreach program? Thank you.
We have talked to other Indian law organizations. We have not yet spoken specifically to California Indian Legal Services. And part of this is getting an understanding from the community who you trust and who you want to work with to move forward. But if that's someone, or if that's a group that you'd like us to be exploring a partnership with, we can do that as well.
Well, exploring it, because you know, I have my issues with them too. You know, it's not hunky-dory. So, you know, I just threw it out because you were just talking about, you know, legal firms, you know, and most of their attorneys have become very well known and respected, you know, outside. And, you know, that's all. I just wanted to see if you contacted them. Thank you.
Thank you. And ideally, you know, we get recommendations from the community, and we also, you know, if like, so for example, with CILS, or if there's, you know, there's certain organizations that specifically work on child welfare, for example, if those are the ones that you think are the right fit, then those are the ones we could reach out to help staff some of the work. So, you know, let's say that there's a firm that has been particularly good on thinking through the gaps in Indian health and the lack of hospitals and the lack of funding, or even an organization that's really good at that. If you recommend it and people are all kind of on the same page, we can reach out to them and seek a partnership with them as well.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up,
not everybody likes lawyers, so we want to be mindful of that.
And a lot of people don't like judges either, but you know, I'm just looking at this because I know they're doing, you know, Indian Child Welfare Act. I know they were bringing food to some of the communities up in the rural areas. I know they know how to work the systems that are in place. And, you know, I'm not part of their system at work, but I've seen it on the outside looking in. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring up a good point too, is if there are certain, like, we don't want to dictate how this work is done. So we haven't put that frame on it yet, but if there are certain agencies even that you think should be taking the lead on certain areas of this work so that they can help because they have a structure that the tribes trust, that Native people trust, we can work with them as well. We just don't want to assume that that's the right way to go before we hear from the community.
Could I say something else here? Because it seems like, you know, in Northern California here, a lot of the tribes share history with salmon. And I think what I'm hearing is like trying to make somebody be able to address like the entire state of California, or can we reduce these places to smaller communities and do more of them, of what people want to hear about or need, or like based on even the committees that the council has, is that we haven't done anything to reach out to the community and say, you know, how does status and identity affect these areas or these tribal, you know, in Southern California or in Central California or Northern California? How is it? You know, we don't even know what to address or ask somebody to address because we haven't really sampled any of the concerns. So I don't know if we keep making it sound like it's a huge thing, we're not going to be able to tackle it. Thanks.
Thanks. And I think that's a great point. And I think within the governing council structure itself, we have regional representation. So we could even kind of break up those pieces and have each of the regional reps kind of take on that and, you know, do that sampling within their region as well. So really, really love that suggestion. Julie?
We did in 2011 the visioning statement for the California Heritage Center Museum. At that time, we brought many, many elders, lots of Indian consultation, and they put together a binder and a vision of what was significant to us as Native people. As in conversation, they talked about identity and status and genocide as being critical issues and at the top of our list. Much of what you're trying to gather together is already in place. It's a matter of using what you have to start with rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's where collaboration and communication and people come together. And I think we'll find a lot more common ground and ability to start somewhere than we will have to invent something. And that's how I think Christina is seeming to get us to. Because I think we have the same issues over and over again. It's just how we're going to make them accountable, how we're going to make them have teeth, not just talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And I think that is a very good point too, of we're waiting to hear from the community. What are those things that have been done that we should just incorporate as a baseline? So for example, we have those copies of the Indian Heritage Center work in print. And I know because being at the Native American Heritage Center, I had a lot of those copies that I read through, or Native American Heritage Commission, as we were looking to do the new budget and catalyze that project itself. But then, you know, in doing some of the research on this initiative, there's a lot of work that was done prior to the creation of the Heritage Commission as well, back in the 60s, that is actually housed within state archives that we could also loop into this process, and was based on California Native community input in a California Native convening that was talking about these very same issues. So kind of what we're hoping to do is get the okay from the community to bring up those things that are community driven, that didn't ever see the light of day or sat on a shelf, and say, what are the things that are still issues that we need to be addressing? Because the Native American Heritage Commission creation was one of a lot of other different recommendations that never really got anywhere. And so we want to see, well, that's getting somewhere now, 50 years later, 60 years later, 70 years later. And what are the things that, are sitting in the archives gathering dust that our grandparents, our parents already recommended, and that we're just kind of spinning our wheels on. So really love that, Julie.
Christine, I have a comment to make in light of both Julie and Colleen's statements, in that, and I'm speaking as a Muskogee Creek retired registered nurse and public health nurse, which was my specialty for 25 years. I worked with the Indian Health Service. Although this is one small component of it, it speaks really loud and clearly to me, because if you don't have environmental health, if you don't have personal, cultural health, where is your economy? I am meeting with Mark Trahant tomorrow morning to discuss those issues with a similar program. And our stories that will be taken on how this pandemic has affected us personally, economically, as Indigenous professionals, will be recorded and archived and placed into the Library of Congress. So that's also a first step. And I agree with, you don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. Everything that we have is before us. What I have watched in the last 15 years is the degradation of public health in not just Indian country and within California. And I'll speak specifically to California here, because this is where I was born and raised as a guest, spiritual guest of the California Indigenous people here, to which I am eternally grateful. And I carry some of their wisdom with me by virtue of the people that I've worked with here, and the Natinakwe people. Public health nurses were the go-between and the translators between Western medicine and what happened in the community. When public health nurses were no longer needed, and the state of California reconfigured and restructured public health to be medicalized, so many of the urban Indian programs, and some reservations to a degree always had this, but mostly the urban programs, now had to take on all Medi-Cal recipients. Their focus is Native people, but because of the county and what the county did, the Indian programs and the urban Indian health programs have now had to absorb local Medi-Cal recipients, which has stressed the system to its limits. We're also practicing medicine in Western medicine in the 18th century, not the 21st century. One of the things that's going on with our medical system and how poorly it has responded to the pandemic is that we don't have accepted legal tools as accepted standards of practice to begin looking at inflammation in the body, which often begins with thoughts and in the brain, for those of us that are spiritually grounded and that know that in our culture, those of us that have our culture alive, we maintain our own wellness in the face of extreme adversity. This pandemic has proven to be otherwise, which means that our dependence as Indian people, our dependence upon the Western dominated Indian health system model of care worked for a brief moment of time to be able to get us over diabetes and heart disease and some other traditionally devastating diseases brought into our culture by extreme materialism and a paradigm of living so far outside of our integrated level of life and living, fractionalized us almost to death. That's the model now that most urban Indian health centers are adopting because they have to. They don't get their funding based upon archaic information that is inadequate to treat Indian people as we have evolved into a level of wellness and well-being. And most of us, which Mark Trahant had reported on a couple of years ago through Indian Country Today, that for the first time in Indian history, our rates of diabetes have drastically decreased. Now we're watching the paradox happen where the rest of the United States now, that still the number one killer in this country is heart disease, which is completely preventable. And diabetes is now what everyone else is beginning to suffer, but Indian people have overcome it. We've healed for the most part. Our diabetes numbers are the lowest they've ever been in over 150 years. There's statistical data to support that. Relying on the systems that develop the colonized laws to restrict us are not the answer either. Very few people understand sovereignty and how sovereignty plays into our own well-being, let alone our very existence. And our well-being is our existence. It's the health of the salmon, it's the health of the game, it's the health of the trees and the water, as well as the air. And we know that. But our voices have been silenced because of laws that are archaic and they're designed to just severely oppress. That's the legal hurdle we have to get over that I think California Indian people, and I don't mean to be speaking out of turn, I know there's a lot of educators here that know that end of it. And I come from a family of Indian educators in the state of California. We're just in a place where we've never been before as Indian people. We have the freedom to and latitude to move forward with sovereignty. I don't think that we have the confidence unless we gather as a group, specifically as the California tribes, and begin their leadership with sovereignty. And I think that you can, in the spirit of what Colleen and Julie were expressing, because now is a really critical launching point to be able to put sovereignty into its use, and with education, with healthcare, in a collaborative modality that will help all, not just Indians, but those that we now are in stewardship of caring for. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise. And we are about at time, but Julian has a comment, so please go ahead.
I just want to bring us back to our reality, and our reality dates back before colonism. And like you said, we are a spiritual people, and we haven't lost it. It's been forced under for a long time and oppressed, but we're waking up. And I want to encourage you that we are not the victims, right? We have overcome genocide. And it isn't because we did anything great. It's because our Creator has a plan for us. And he's restoring us back to that place. In our tribes and our people before contact, we were well. We were healthy. We were strong. We were resilient. And we didn't have sickness or lying or anything like that. And our Creator is bringing us back to that same place. And yeah, we have had it before. And it's coming back strong, because I see the beautiful people on the screen in every tribe, and we're coming together. And I just want to encourage you to stay strong. We get to dictate now what happens. We're not asking, and don't ask. Be respectful and be polite, but you don't have to ask. The Creator has given it back to us. It's our time to heal the nations. It's our time to heal. It's our time to wellness and watch the disease and sickness go away, because we have the DNA to carry it out. We overcome every sickness and everything that men can throw at us, and we're still here. We're still beautiful, strong people. So I just wanted to say that, encourage you. You know, we don't have to ask. We just have to let them know this is what we're going to do. And you're the ones that tried to tell us we couldn't do it, but here we are. And we're not, enough is enough. You had your turn. It's not working. The whole creation is crying out for us to come back and tell them how to do it. That's all.
Yeah, we thank you for those healing words. I think that was a beautiful way to conclude tonight's listening session. I do want to put in the chat too, Teddy shared with me that the Native American communities, the Central Valley Movement Building is hosting a Native American Communities and School to Prison Pipeline webinar. If for folks that are interested, that's the registration link in the chat. If anyone else has any convenings upcoming that they'd like to share with folks, please feel free to drop them in the chat before we end. And I'm going to turn it over to any council members who'd like to give any concluding words. But if you are done and you just want to get to your dinner or drinks or just sleep, I think we're okay to end as well. So Council Member Harper or Sisk, if either of you have any closing comments, please feel free.
Yeah, I would like to tell more about, you know, the events that are trying to take place here. We have a chance to really bring our tribal people back together and try to live that tribal life again if we realize what it takes. And if we and learn how to give, like talk about earlier, it's like we've been taught to be so individual now that we've forgotten how to be collective, to move collectively, to achieve living standards collectively, like a village or like tribal people did before. And we're hanging on to the tail of that. And now is the time to use this money, use these grants, and bring back that, you know. So community,
I think we lost Council Member Sisk. We'll follow up with her because I think that she had some very good messaging about bringing communities back together and using this opportunity to remember community, which I think is kind of one of the goals of this initiative as well, is to, you know, remember who we are, remember who our relations are, and remember that there's bigger fish to fry. To make sure that we're all doing well, and that our collective success should be the goal. It looks like Councilmember Harper, do you have any final words? And hearing.
Thank you, Christina. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And we will be in touch with some hopefully good information on upcoming convenings. So thank you all. Take care and have a good evening.